Cliff, I'm really excited to be here with you. My name is Drzymala, here with Cliff Schecter.
Yes.
And you and I have been talking offline a bit. We both wrote pieces this week that are relevant to a lot of the stuff that's happening right now in Washington, D.C. And I gotta say, I was really surprised over the weekend when I saw what these like 8 Democratic senators were doing, because I was thinking at this point, based on the election results, well, I was like, all right, we're ready to go. We've got the public backing us, so what
Right.
what's happening?
Well, it's interesting, and again, like you are no babe in the woods, and neither am I, and all of us still on some level. Well, I should say all of us. I'll speak for you and me right now because you already said your thing. But like, I never fully trusted they would do it. I mean, when you've had the carpet pulled out from you, the rug pulled out so many times that
So,
I was pleasantly shocked that they were hanging in there. And then
yeah,
the reasoning was given later, just the ridiculous reasons for them folding.
yeah,
The my favorite was Jean Shaheen. She was like, "Well, if it didn't work in 40 days, it won't work in. Why would it work in 50?" And I was like, "Then why would it have worked in 30? Did you say at 20 days it will work in 10? If you either start this to win or you don't start it at all. You don't say, hey, was it like a Jews wandering in the desert thing? We'll give it 40 days, you know what I mean? Instead of 40 years. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm Jewish. That comes to my mind right away.
yeah. Same here.
But I don't know what it is about 40 days, but in any case, okay. So to answer your question, I still, as much as they've lost a lot of the ability to shock me, yes,
Yeah,
they like the fact that it happened so quickly and so suddenly,
yeah,
and the cave. In the piece that I wrote, I went beyond just the overall, like, how do you do this again? How do you? I mean, because I don't understand how people like that exist. I can't do anything in life and not do it to win. Um, if I'm
yeah.
playing it if it's a contest of any sort, right? Like, I can't imagine being somebody who's like, I take real pride in just being the one that gives in every time and losing and looking like a complete loser and being pathetic. But man, I did the right thing. I was nice to the other guys. I followed norms that don't exist. I'm great. So I don't understand that from the beginning. But then you add in the reasoning behind it. They got nothing. It's like, it's bad enough you gave in. You didn't even get John Thune to say, tomorrow we will definitively have a vote on this, and Mike Johnson to say, tomorrow we'll definitively have a vote on this.
Yeah.
You got John Thune to be like, I'm not doing anything for a lot of December before Christmas. Maybe we'll give you a vote someday. He's like, I promise. One of those days you'll get a vote. And Mike Johnson, of course, didn't promise a right. At some point, I mean, who knows? The future could hold anything. It's like Back to the Future too. Where we're going, we don't need votes. And sorry. And then,
It's all too scary accurate for what's going on right now.
right, it was almost a prediction of our future.
You won't need to vote again. You won't need to vote again. This is the last time you'll need to vote, right? He said.
I sadly may have accurately just predicted our future. Now I feel terrible.
No.
But it just was like, what are we, again, you give in after 40 days, there better be a really good reason. And you say, hey, this is what we got. These are the concessions we
Yeah.
got. And the concession they got is, I promise you, because I pinky swear, I'm the guy that was the lieutenant under Mitch McConnell who wouldn't allow a vote on a Supreme Court justice for a year and kept lying about the
Right.
reasons why. But I pinky swear that this time it's real. Like, we really will do what we said we will do. And then, of course, Mike Johnson's never going to do it because Mike Johnson is like Trump's butler. I mean, he's like a little poodle that just
Right.
follows Trump around. And I mean, I've never seen such a pathetic little pipsqueak in my life. So, hey, but he loves Jesus, just nothing Jesus said. And so,
And
go ahead.
yeah, and you can see like already, like Lindsey Graham's like, oh well, the solution to this is just to end Obamacare, right? Like that's where they're going. Like now they're just completely pivoting, right? So I look, and I think you hit upon something that's really interesting, which is the reasoning that the Democrats gave. right? Like, first of all, they weren't consistent on that. They all gave different answers, right? And
We can't even get that. We can't even get a messaging right when we lie.
and all of them, none of them made sense, right? Like just like you said, we brought up Gene Shaheen, but like, look, literally none of them made any sense, right? So what that says to me is that they're not actually telling us the real reason why.
Right.
And I think that's a fundamental problem. Not that I blame them for wanting to play cards close to their vest every now and then, but if they're speaking to, assuming that they actually do want to have supporters in the world,
Yep.
if they're not speaking to
Assuming.
supporters honestly, assuming, right, with that assumption, like if they want to have supporters, they need to be able to have a trusting relationship with those supporters and treat them like people who are worthy of trust. And so if they have, like, maybe they do have a smart reasoning here that we just don't know about, but we will never know because they're not going to actually tell us the real reason.
I lost my belief in six-dimensional chess a long time ago, man. You gotta tell me what
and
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that what they need to do is they need to realize that, like, if you think about how this went down, it was a Sunday night, and they talked to literally no one before they had the vote. Or like no one, none of us got a say. None of us got a shot
No.
at these folks to talk to them. No one got to call their offices during normal business hours. Like, this just happened in an hour or two, and if they just go, and so immediately all of there's this rising progressive media that's happening right now. And so now, instead of those people being communicated with directly, now those people all automatically assume the worst, like you and I are doing, and are like destroying them right now because they aren't even engaging with the media figures who are rising in stature and importance right now, who usually support and are on their sides when they want to fight.
Yeah, no, well, that's exactly it. But I mean, again, like I can only judge something. I need context. I can only judge something now based on past behavior. And when you watch people give in again and again and again, and let people steal Supreme Court justices, and let people, break the amount of time they're allowed to vote on something, and not swear in somebody breaking all precedent for 50 days because they don't want her to vote on something, and just every other lie. I mean, I can go on this for the next 2 hours with things they've done that have broken precedent. So why, why would you? So when you see that on the Republican side, and then you see on the Democratic side, like that we have given in to these dishonest people again and again, why would we believe there could possibly be a good reason? And if there was a good reason, why the hell wouldn't you tell us? What is the super secret reason that you're not telling us? And again, the way I feel is, I'm sorry?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea.
What the reason what I think it is that they are representing a last gasp of the old guard, a dying breed.
Yeah.
They are, I talked to somebody a little bit earlier, a friend who worked actually for at one point for one of the members who was who caved and was inside our noses stuff and was saying that these people are some of the most infamously weak people in the caucus who are always like, let's give in. So what I'm trying to say is, I want to keep that momentum going. We had the No Kings thing, broke records. We had last Tuesday, and what I wrote about in my piece when I was like, hey, Tim Kaine, you come from a place called Virginia. You may have noticed that your governor won with 16 points and like maybe a +3 at best Democratic state. You may have noticed that the Democrats have never had more than 54 House delegates before, and now they've got 65. We just broke a record. You, John Fetterman, and in his case, I'm a little less whatever about it because he's not been the same since the stroke, and I do really wonder if he's the same person. And I don't say that as an ad hominem. I say that as I wonder, because apparently his own wife has gone into the office and said, I don't recognize who this person is anymore. And so, but if he is thinking it all rationally, it's sort of like, hey, dude, you just won 3 Supreme Court seats massively. And oh, by the way, you won the Bucks County DA seat. Democrats have won it before in 1891. So no biggie. I mean, like, these are the types of records they broke in states of people that just said no mas and gave in. And so you can't be listening to your constituents because No King's Day would have told you and the election day would have told you that you are a dying breed. In your own caucus, like, I had to watch as Chris Murphy sat there and like said things that never would have been said in the past. That they were I mean, like, really seemed pointedly to be aimed at his colleagues and at Chuck Schumer
Yeah.
about how terrible this deal was. I saw Ro Khanna call on Schumer to step down. I saw, and he's the only one I've seen. I mean, these are things that people who don't pay attention to this stuff never would have happened even 10 years ago. That we have it within the caucus, we have it among governors in the states, and then we have the grassroots that is just overwhelmingly against what this old sort of insulated guard did. They're on the way out. And that's why I want to give people hope. This is their last gasp. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the whole project of the Trump administration is about destruction. It's not creating something new. So it makes sense that this is the last gasp of the opposition, the way that the old style of opposition would have worked, which is not effective, right? So,
Yep.
so you said in your piece that you believe that that Chuck Schumer is, even though he voted no, technically, that he actually was behind this to a certain extent, and blessed this.
I literally have no doubt in my mind. I've talked to now.
What's right? Yeah.
Well, so there's at least three people I could cite. Two not publicly. One, is there a second one who wrote about it? I feel like there were two that wrote about it publicly, and I'm forgetting one. But one of them, Democratic consultant, often appears on TV. I've interviewed her before. She's great, Julie Rodzinski, who, from her sources, said absolutely Chuck Schumer was behind this. And then there's two other folks I've spoken to, including one, as I told you, who worked for one of these folks, who were like, Chuck Schumer is behind this. And then there's just the common sense stuff for anybody who's worked on campaigns or worked in the Senate the way you did or whatever. Dick Durbin is Chuck Schumer's number two, literally his lieutenant. Is there anybody anywhere, anyhow, I can just go on with the any's, who thinks that Dick Durbin said, I'm not going to tell Chuck Schumer, I'm just going to go and do this. And if Chuck Schumer tells me not to, I'm going to ignore him and I'm going to do it anyhow. There's no world where that happens. There's no world where Schumer doesn't say, go do it. And the second piece of information I would use, data points, is who caved last time when it came down to it in the end? Chuck Schumer. The third data point I would use is and this to me is just unbelievable. I mean, this is why these old guard folks need to go. Like one of the most destructive things has been the filibuster. It has allowed Mitch McConnell to create the kind of dysfunction and anger that has led to Trump's election, because Democrats have promised all of these things and then not been able to get them done. And the worst part of all of it is it's not constitutional. The Constitution makes the Senate a majority body. Good old Aaron Burr, who shot Alexander Hamilton, changed one rule, and they started interpreting that later as, about ending debate. And they started interpreting that later as, oh, you can filibuster forever. And then they ended up reforming that to you need 66 votes, and eventually you need 60. The point is, it never was in the Constitution. The Constitution says it's a majority body. I argued for years to no effect that either Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, when they're vice presidents, presiding officers, there's no majority or minority leader in the Constitution either, or parties. There are presiding officers, though, and that's the VP should have stood up and said, this is unconstitutional, and killed the filibuster. And if they'd done that, and I like a lot of things about these people, so this is a critique, but I'm not ripping on everything about them. I'm just saying we didn't use power right. If we had done that, think of that period of time in 2006, 2008, and then Obama elected overwhelming majorities, 59 seats most of the time, 60 even for a small period of time. Would have been longer if they had held on with the Norm Coleman thing forever and not let Al Franken be sworn in. And we could have passed, minimum wage could have been raised. Unions could have been strengthened. Like the amount of stuff that could have been done with just 50 votes and the vice president. We could have even lost 8 or 9 or 10 Democrats on those votes. And we could have.
They called it card check. That the union, there were a lot of union rights that came up in 2009 at a moment when a lot of Americans were hurting. And I actually think that burying that vote is at the root of a lot of the votes that we've lost among working people in the last couple decades. It's just, you can trace it directly back to an unwillingness of the Senate to stand up for their own voters and constituencies.
Correct.
When it really matters.
Yeah, and just the general conditions of this country. I mean, I think some of it's there's very specific rational issues like that, and then there's just the general sense that everything adds up, right? we elected Democrats and they couldn't stop school shootings. Well, we had a majority on background checks and anti-gun trafficking laws. We had 56 votes. We couldn't pass it because they filibustered it. We had a majority on climate legislation. We couldn't pass it because they filibustered it. Like, I go through a whole list.
Right.
You know,
and why do we protect those things? Why do we protect those things? To protect the norms and make sure that the Constitution stays intact and protect the peace. Well, guess what? The Constitution's gone. I don't even if I agreed with.
Well, and it's not even in the Constitution, though. That's the thing about the filibuster. Go ahead, though.
Right, but they're saying protecting the rules, right? So like protecting the peace, making sure that the Republicans and Democrats both stay in and invested on the way that the norms that we have, so that things don't go away. Well, like that's over. I mean, like I don't even if I agreed with the filibuster, I have no idea why I would be standing up or making any kind of decisions to protect it at this point, because at stake is whether or not the Senate continues to exist and the Congress at all continues to exist as a co-equal branch of government. Like, that's the thing that's under threat right now, not the filibuster. Why are they worrying about the filibuster?
Right, and that's where you bring me back to sort of the third point I was going to make there, which I went on my long tirade. I apologize, but I'm prone to those.
Go for it.
But no, but that was the third point I was going to give as my evidence, and of evidence besides everything I've heard, what the conclusions others have come to, that Schumer was responsible last time, that his number two in there that was willing to do this. Well, then on top of all of that, his recruit in Maine, Janet Mills, governor,
right,
literally one of the first, and she stood up to Trump at one point. Like, I'm not sitting here ripping on Janet Mills. She could be a good candidate. I don't know, but why is it that she's nominated, or when she's supported by him, and clearly they started a joint fund with the DSCC, they're supporting her. Okay, why, when that happens, is one of the first things out of her mouth not about kids being hogtied and kidnapped by masked ghouls, by the violation, which a court just again said yesterday, of posse comitatus, of Trump sending troops into our cities. Why is one of the first things we hear from her in this atmosphere, in this fascist atmosphere? She thought one of the most important things to say first was, I support the filibuster and I'll protect it. I'm like, read the room. I mean, so that's my thought. Go ahead, but that's my third piece of evidence. Schumer purposely repeats her, and that's one of the first things that she says.
That's good evidence, because it clearly, what she wouldn't have thought of that.
Right.
She doesn't. That's not. She's been a governor of a state. She doesn't even know what the filibuster is. So the only reason why she would even be talking about that is if someone else told her to do it.
Yep.
Absolutely. So who is that person? Definitely.
Right.
I totally buy that. And it's like, if you look, going back to what you were saying before about no kings, I actually think that's very important. I know it's Congress and they're elected to talk, right? Like that is like I know that people like to say, oh my God, the Congress are all talk. That is literally their duty. But again, we're in a situation where someone is trying to get rid of the courts and Congress as co-equal branches of government.
Right.
And if that happens, then the way that battle is fought out is in the streets, not literally the streets. It could be in the streets, but it's among the people. So for any person in any leadership position at all, whether it's an executive branch position, a congressional position, judges even, right? Like the only thing that they can be doing right now that is actually impactful is talking to people. That's the only thing to do, because the people are the last battle. That's the only thing left. We're already done. And so I just don't see the point in any kind of institutional power playing at all that isn't mostly about connecting with the people. And I think that's the subject of the piece that I wrote.
Well, let's get to that. But can I say one last thing?
Yeah, please.
Because I want to. No, I don't want to say it. I want to ask you, as somebody who you worked for Cory Booker for a while. I don't remember if you worked for another senator on top. Claire McCaskill. So you were on the Senate. I mean, you know the Senate better than I do. I've always been more of one of these sort of campaign rats that moved around and walked around like one of those guys and jumped on empty freight cars and went between campaigns, my little stick over my and that kind of thing.
That's a good life.
I mean, when I was younger, then I had a family and no more. But I want to understand this. Like, Republicans, it's always made sense to favor the filibuster when all you care about are judges and appointees, and you got rid of the filibuster for that, right? and tax cuts and regulation cuts, and you can do all that under reconciliation, so the filibuster doesn't apply. Why do you care? You know, like you want the filibuster because everything positive that could happen if you're a Republican, for everything that we could do, they can block, and they can still get all the stuff they want. Why would this be so important to Chuck Schumer? What am I missing here? Why? Why?
I think fundamentally, if you there's a specific reason, I think, and like a fundamental reason. And the fundamental reason is that these people have been elected. This system that has existed is the system that produced these people who are in these offices right now, like Chuck Schumer. And I think they sense that if that system is upended and destroyed, they are not the type of people that will be produced by whatever system comes next. Right. So they're looking to maintain and repair the system that's existed because it is the system that like literally that's the only reason why they're in office. Like why Chuck Schumer isn't particularly charismatic. He's not like
that was a nice way of putting it.
Great. He's not great at having authentic conversation.
He's not good at talking to people, which is something you kind of, he's like kind of a little bit like JD Vance ordering donuts, which is
and he's good at managing stuff in back rooms with constituencies, which is important.
Yes.
In the context of the old system, because all these deals, again, this is about trust and whether or not you're being truthful publicly or whether you're having something different behind the scenes. That like dual system.
And what's the other thing, of course, that he's really good at? That's the old system that is less important now.
Money, right?
He can raise the hell out of Wall Street money, which that's right. And that's done great things for our party. I mean, that is just that's shown us all the right priorities.
Not that Wall Street likes him, but it's the way that he operates is we're going to regulate you. And if you want influence over those regulations, you have to give me the money and play ball. And then we will give you some influence over how those regulations are shaped. Right. That's the old style of system. Yep. And it's the system that produced the current makeup of the Senate. So I think that is the sort of the general disposition. And then right now, I would just assume that Chuck Schumer, again, thinks of the job of the Senate as deliberative, like talking, like I said before. And so he's looking to say, okay, well, right now, if the Republicans get rid of the filibuster, I and my colleagues become irrelevant for the rest of the president.
So they can't clone themselves. So they might as well make sure the next crop coming up looks as much like them.
No, it's literally just I know that as a senator. My job is to sit in the well of the Senate and talk on the Senate floor and talk. And I will not be relevant to the process anymore as someone in the minority in the Senate with a Republican president unless the filibuster exists. So they're making a play for the next, through this next election right now to keep the filibuster long enough to continue to be in negotiations over where the government goes. And which again, I don't know why they care about that, because the only thing that matters is whether or not they're talking to people, because we're way past that. Like Trump at any point could decide, he could just nuke these Republicans and be like, all right, it's over. He could just do what you just said. He could just tell Vance to go in and be like, gavel, 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 filibuster gone. And then it would get tied up in the courts and the courts would have to decide. So like it really is not up to them in the first place.
Yep.
They have to be with the people. But again,
and even the other part of this too, I would add to that, which is the argument. I'll say just quickly. I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to. But over SNAP, it was sort of like, well, we want to get the SNAP payments back, and my response to that was, he was illegally withholding them. Courts found that he was, and of course, as usual, the Supreme Court put a stay on it to delay it to bail him out, because John Roberts is a traitor and should be treated as such, as far as I'm concerned, in the future, as one of the biggest enablers of the destruction of the rule of law we've ever seen. But to get back to it, the point is, he is legally bound already, if there's a government shutdown, by this weird law and constitution thing, to actually give people food. Then courts found he was responsible for it, and he appealed it. My point is, if he's going to keep ignoring the law when there's a shutdown, why would he not just keep ignoring the law if he feels like it when there's not a shutdown? Like, he'll do what he wants when he wants, apparently. So how does that solve this problem?
It doesn't. You're 100% correct. He could just decide now that the shutdown's over okay, guess what? We're not sending SNAP payments
Right.
anyway.
What SNAP? I don't believe in SNAP. I believe, I need money for Argentina and to bail out Orban, which apparently he's doing too.
I want to invest all of your personal data that Elon Musk took and put on a hard drive somewhere in his office and turn that into some kind of crypto scam that is going to benefit me using federal money. That's how I want to spend that money.
I totally don't see that happening at all. At all.
Never. That would never happen.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, let's talk about your piece. I mean, your piece was great. And do we, you and I, like in a world of, I'm trying to think of a movie where this kind of thing happens, where, right, well, God, I have to keep going back to the Future. It seems to be my go-to, where they stop existing, they start being erased from the picture. When they change the past, right? Yeah. You and I spent a whole lot of time as campaign strategists. I know, at least with Booker and McCaskill, the last sort of thing I did on the domestic side was writing ads for Joe Biden in 2020. After that, I was like, all right, we defeated the big orange menace. Like, things should improve. I'm never gonna. It's never gonna get any better than having been part of this effort in defeating him. I want to do more on the commentary side and on some other things. I'm gonna go do some other things. But point is, 20 years there, at least.
Yeah.
20. I mean, I was at that. I worked. I mean, I met my wife in 2002 on a political campaign. That's what I did, and whether I was doing it on the ground, as I did for a number of years, or later on, at making ads, doing PR, that kind of stuff. But you also, I don't remember if you worked on campaigns or not, but you certainly were a Democratic strategist within the offices of two pretty high-profile, powerful senators. I mean, we do need staffers on the Hill, so we need that part of it. But do we need Democratic strategists anymore? Because except for maybe we should get them from Hollywood, who teaches people how to actually be natural in front of a phone and whatever. Maybe that should be what a Democratic strategist is now, because the TV ads aren't doing anything and suck and don't reach anybody anymore. And polling is all over the damn place. I don't. So I have to see 7 or 8 polls before I believe anything, and average them. And even then, I'm skeptical. Like what is it about what you and I have done that is still relevant? I guess digital strategists, you could argue, need to exist, but one could argue maybe I don't know. You go ahead. Your piece. Let me let you talk.
Yeah. So I wrote a piece actually all the way back in 2017 about how activists were taking more and more leadership in all the projects that I was involved in. And I have worked I sort of would go back to Congress, and I go and work on campaigns, and go to Congress, work on campaigns. So I have a lot of campaign experience. And the thing that I was noticing in those campaigns is that the strategists were taking up less and less space, and the activists were taking more and more space. And activists were getting committed enough that they were spending multiple hours a week getting involved, but they were also getting disillusioned, because the strategists would love to have the free labor, right? But they won't invite those activists into the room to give them any kind of input or insight or power governance. And I think this is actually the thing that has destroyed the credibility of the Democrats with their own base over the last 10, 20 years, is that we've taken this ability that we have to reach grassroots donors through email and text message to do fundraising. And we said, give us money, but we haven't told them or given any kind of input about how that money is spent. And instead, it's gotten...
Give us money and say nice things about us on any platforms you're on, or if you're one of the lucky ones as they see it. I don't, but whatever. Who gets to, be on MSNBC and all. I mean, I used to do all that stuff, and I'm so glad, a whole other story. If you're one of those, like be out there in your various places saying wonderful things about us and giving us money. Otherwise, you don't need to really talk to us. We don't really care what you're thinking. And let's be clear, there are exceptions to this. We just saw an election that just happened that I felt showed a number of folks had learned from that and changed that model up. I wrote a little bit about that in my piece too, but I'm interested in what you think.
Yeah, so all that has been the way the Democratic Party has run, and I think it's important to note that when the Democratic strategists, when a small group of strategists have maintained strategic control over the budget and messaging, that's when we've lost the hardest. We lose elections when that is the prevailing strategy, and in elections where where more people are invited into the room, and there's very few closed rooms where the activists actually have some influence over the things, where the candidates go out and make media figures who would agree with them part of the constituency that they're answerable to. And
Yep.
each of those media figures have audiences that they're answerable to. So there's a direct line from the people, like the massive crowds, directly into the campaign nucleus. Those are the elections where we win. And Mamdani is by far the highest profile example of that in recent times. There have been lots of good examples of it. And the
Yep.
most successful politicians that we've seen over the last decade are all people who operate with that type of MO at the forefront, right? That's like people like AOC, people like
Yep.
Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna, they didn't come in with that. He actually adopted it. He saw that that's how to do it and adopted that MO.
Yep.
And those are the people who we see as the most successful
And regardless,
politicians right
again, of and there will be arguments and splits here and there on ideology. I mean, obviously, I think we mostly are all in the same place. Again, one of the reasons I've become so this old guard and I've gotten to this point is I don't think my
now.
politics have really changed that much at all. I just don't know how you can look at this country right now in the same way you did in 2014 or 2015. Like I thought at that time, if we won, had Hillary won, I do think that she was more progressive on some things than was given credit for. Would have probably been more corporate than my liking, absolutely. But I do think that there were things that you could. She tried for universal health care. She had tried. I think there are things we could have reformed at that point in time.
Yeah.
We're well beyond the Rubicon now.
Yeah.
Like or I guess it's well beyond the pale. We've crossed the Rubicon. I'm mixing my metaphors in Ireland and in Italy, depending, my Dublin and Rome metaphors. But I mean, when you've got six media companies, and that's the one I always use as the easiest one because that affects so much of what we think and everything that control 90% of what you hear, see, games you play. Like they're not just in the even in like sort of we just have TV station. No, it's TV, it's radio, it's streaming, it's gaming, it's everything. That's every industry. Like every industry. So we've become so monopolized. And if you want to go get the best ideas on monopoly, go read some of the things Teddy Roosevelt said, how anti-democratic it was and how it would destroy democracy. And we've got people getting $1 trillion packages. I mean, this is not even like counting the fact that Elon Musk actually sucks at what he does and alienated the very customer base that he should have been quoting so that their sales went through the freaking floor. But
Yes.
but on top of that, even if he had done the best job ever and was like CEO of like the century, $1 trillion. We can't give food to people. Yeah, exactly. Right. We can't give people food and we can't give them health care, but he can get, but he can find ways to not pay taxes or pay much less than he's supposed to and get, I mean, and $1 trillion package. I mean, that's obscene. And if you don't find that obscene, like, I don't know how to talk to you. If you don't find people starving go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so you're right. There has been a major consolidation, but I think the saving grace that we have is that all those things that have gotten conglomerated are all broadcast media. And I didn't actually talk about this in my piece, but this is quite important, I think. The broadcast model is actually gone. It's dead. Like all those things that are being bought are actually dying media. And the things that are alive and kicking, the things that where all the life force is happening, all the creative energy, are all places where there's a lot of interplay between the audience and the media maker. And the media maker is responsible to the audience members, and they know they have a in close touch with the audience, and the audience speaks back, and the audience raises things to the agenda that the media figure needs to cover. They know they need to cover it because their audience is clamoring for it.
And that is huge. Go ahead. Let me let you finish.
Yeah, and like all the people watching right now, you have the ability to chat with us on this platform, and a lot of I work with influencers now. So the influencers I work with are live streaming influencers. They are the most in touch with their audiences and have the highest emotional and trust bond with their audiences of any media figures. They're not drip fed by the algorithm like on TikTok. These are people who
Yep.
people seek them out. And that is the saving grace. That's where the next constitutional democracy is going to come from in our country, because
Absolutely.
those are people with real stakes and with constituencies in a world where the constituency model of pre-21st century has destroyed itself and is falling apart. Chuck Schumer,
well, and you know how it's
for constituencies are gone.
Yep. Right. As I say, you know how we know this, because Chuck Schumer is literally hiding and is unpopular because he's not being ripped apart in the same way on CNN, maybe by a few people here and there, but you got plenty defending him. We know they probably love him on Fox at this point. Even on MSNBC, I'm sure there's a couple who knows what Morning Joe. I don't watch any of that crap, but my point is, on iHeartRadio around the country, and I mean all traditional media, I'm sure if it were just based upon that, it would be an I Love Chuck Schumer brigade. But why is it that the grassroots is so angry? Because they're seeing shows like this, because they're watching stuff on Substack and on YouTube and on TikTok and on places like that, and they're hearing what people who either are just like themselves and just are just smart people who care and are just shocked, or they're listening to people like you and I who have been inside the system and are so disgusted by how it's being run at this point that we're here talking about it here. And so
I don't care what Chuck Schumer thinks of me. I don't.
Well, every night before I go to sleep, I do say a little prayer that Chuck Schumer, listen, with what I've said about Chuck Schumer at this point, if he feels anything less, if he even knows who the hell I am, which he may not, but if he does and he feels anything less than hatred for me, I would be kind of shocked. And I don't care.
Yeah, but
I was saying an old FDR line. I invite his hatred. That's what FDR said about the oligarchs of his age. I invite their hatred. Well, you know what? Yeah. If you're destroying our politics, I don't care if it means you're a CEO destroying our politics. I don't care if it means somebody selling out Democratic Party principles or whatever. I want you to hate me. Not because I get some thrill out of it, but it means I'm doing my job. Because no, we're not going back to the way it was. It wasn't working very well then. I believe it was potentially, and I did then believe it was reformable then. It is not now. It is reformable, and depending on how you use that word, with massive change in how Democrats operate, massive change in how we regulate our economy and our democracy, for that matter. Huge structural, and this is why I bring up FDR. This is that kind of a moment. We need new institutions that don't exist right now. We need the ones that do exist. I mean, I could give you 15 different, reforms that the Supreme Court needs right now to function as an actual
the Constitutional
body.
Convention. You called for a Constitutional Convention in your piece. I love that. Yes.
Yep. Well, yeah, and I have to give credit where it's due. Good pal of mine, and I'm sure people know him because he's not a quiet man. Malcolm Nance, who national security guy and all of that, has talked about wanting to do that in the spring in Philly. No symbolism there. I'm sure it's just the cheesesteaks. And having gone to college in Philly, I would tell you, it's worth it just for the cheesesteaks. Don't go to Geno's or Pat's. Go to Jim's. Just trust me, okay? Well, one of those guys. I'm trying to remember if Geno or Pat has like the Confederate flag up, so that should give some of that away. But Jim still has the best. In any case, we'll get off cheesesteaks for now and back to the fact that there's maybe a little symbolism to Philly if everybody shows up, influencers, elected officials. Because as I said before, you were bringing up some of the people that are so effective doing this, but I didn't finish the point, and that was my fault, as often is, which is, again, there's people in all parts of, again, take that old guard over here out of the equation and take what I would say the far left, Democratic socialist part. And I'm not talking about people that have called themselves that, but have run as Democrats and have been part of our coalition. I'm talking about, I voted for Jill Stein instead, or I did whatever, because that works out great for us every time you do that. Right.
Or young people who don't believe in democracy. Yeah.
Right. But everybody else in between that, so you brought up AOC and others on the left, I would say I would put Jasmine Crockett probably a little bit more to the center than her. I put Eric Swalwell a little more in the center than Jasmine Crockett, maybe. Mikey Sherrill, who ran as a moderate, she brought in a whole coterie of influencers she worked with, which I wrote about in my piece on that campaign. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of information from Will Robinson, who's just brilliant at this. Another turncoat like me and you, who was on the inside and decided to tell the truth and is on the outside. And Will was telling me about her use of various local influencers in New Jersey and how effective that was. And she calls herself a moderate. I think a lot of people would call her moderate. That's the kind of moderate who fights for democratic values that I'm all in favor of. Again, I may disagree with somebody at this part of the left or this part of the moderate wing of the Democratic Party because I'm sort of somewhere in here, but I don't care. We can disagree on a few things. I want you to be campaigning the right way. I want you to be embracing the right policies. The minute they did that damn sellout, Mikey Sherrill, and I quoted it and put it up on Substack, was like, this is a betrayal of everything I ran on for governor. People will now, are now going to lose their health care and are going to, I don't think she used the word die, but are going to suffer because of this. She was with us. So again, it's not, we don't need people. If we're going to be an advanced democracy, we need a big coalition. We need to be comfortable alongside people. There are going to be some issues we're going to disagree on. That's fine. I think if on the basic thrust of we believe in personal freedoms and we believe in what's the best way, economic freedoms, and to me that means when I say economic freedom, I don't mean like Ron Paul leave him on the side of the road to die. Economic freedom. I mean the freedom to participate in our economy, the kind of freedom that allows you to afford healthcare, to have family and medical leave, that gives you all of the necessities you need, so you can be successful economically instead of struggling and freaking out every single day or every month when bills are due. You're never going to be economically successful that way. Hell, you're just trying to dig yourself out of a hole somewhere. And so, to me, that is the broader or the kind of economic freedom I'm talking about, and democratic freedoms, as in our personal freedoms, and as in you follow the fucking law and constitution, or you go to prison for it. That,
law. Who would have thought that the Democrats would be the ones pursuing the law, over the Republicans, right? So, like, I do want to we've been pretty assertive here in what's not working. I just want to point out that there's a lot of hope here, right? There actually are a lot of things that are working well right now. It's just that the old systems haven't caught up yet. And like people like you and me who have worked in politics for a long time, there's a lot that we still have inside us to add. We have experience, we have perspective, we have connections, and as long as we're not trying to keep the power of decision making so hard, as long as we're taking more of it.
I want all the power. I'm sorry, Sam. This is where I shocked you. I want all the power and all the money and all. Now, I'm not Peter Thiel. I'm just kidding. And I don't look anything like him. Don't.
Well, we just need to be. Yeah, we just need to be teachers and connectors and take on that attitude. And as long as we do that, as all the people who've worked in politics, even Chuck Schumer, if he decided to be more of a teacher and connector instead of a power wielder, he would find new relevance and new purpose in the governing job
and new support among folks like us. Again, look, we're human. I mean, there are things that are hard to forgive. There are things that are hard to let people back from. But Jesus Christ, I'm sitting here now at times screaming out in support of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And if I can do that, there's no Democrat I can't forgive. There's no human I can't forgive for things. And I'm not saying I forgive her for everything. She is an ally lately, I'm sure for her own purposes, because it's amazing to me, by the way, that she ended up being the smart one who looked at the polls and saw that they were going to lose those two statewide races by 24 points, which I also mentioned to put in my piece for people who didn't get the perspective of that. We had won the federal races. We won the presidential race in the past, and in Georgia, and we had won the two senators races in those elections. We had not won a statewide seat in Georgia for state office since 2006. And these two folks running for public utility officer, pretty important when people are utilities are. They won by identical margins. They each won by 24 points. This is Georgia, folks. They won by 24 points in California or New York or Illinois. I guess they're doing my Howard Dean speech. I'm just kidding. But they didn't win by. Remember when that used to destroy people? Now you apparently can, Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I mean, yes, it is so quaint. We're at such a different age. But I mean, when you win by 24 points in Georgia, you are kicking some serious ass. That kind of overperformance should tell people what was going on. And again, so I do want people to have, come out of this optimistically, because, and I tried that in the piece that I wrote. I tried that here because, again, to me, in a way, what Schumer and those 8 did should give us optimism, because it was the last gasp of a dying breed. Okay, the people that won on Tuesday, Mamdani, Cheryl, Spanberger also took a huge chunk of her budget out of network TV and put it into streaming and digital ads.
Yes.
She, you can argue to what level each of them got it, and some got it more than others. But the point is, they all were moving in that direction. And
can I add one more thing?
I talk too much. Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, there's one more thing I want to tag onto this. There's actually a new thing, addition to this storyline that you're talking about that you may not be aware of. Katie Wilson was running an insurgent campaign against a sitting Democratic
Seattle
mayor in Seattle. And my organization I founded, Progressive Victory, which is a bunch of young people who come out of this live streaming influencer space. They come into our Discord community and they get trained and go do electoral politicking and voter outreach. And Progressive Victory served as the main engine of field campaigning for phone banking, and then do it an in-person canvas weekend as well for her. And she won. She's just they've been counting because the votes have been really close. And she just declared victory last night. And that is another great example. She came to the media spaces where these young people were, talked to them, gave them some insight into what she was doing and what her agenda would be as mayor. And then she crushed this guy.
Yeah, we talked about this on our live stream yesterday. One of our, brilliant former Amazon guy probably turned against tech, some of the big tech guys in the way we've turned against certain aspects of what we've done, and works for Blue Ant Media. Lawrence Winterman is back out in Seattle visiting folks right now, and he was sort of going into the whole story because he lived in Seattle for 30 years of this race. And that's the thing, is I feel like there are probably other stories I still don't even know from it. I don't think most people know that that they passed in California a Prop 50 type thing in Virginia, so they can do a mid-decade redistricting, not because we want to cheat like they do, but because we're not going to let them steal it from us, and that could lead to 3 more seats for us in Virginia. That passed. I haven't heard many people talk about it. That's why I love to bring up that the where we won the DA's race in Bucks County, where they hadn't elected a Democrat since 1891. Kind of a big deal.
Deal. All these things are huge deals. Yes.
Maine, we regulated guns and we passed voter rights legislation overwhelmingly by ballot measure. There's just a ton of these things that happen.
I'm more excited for state legislatures in 2026 than I am for Congress, because that's where the actual power is that we've lost it. And if we can win state legislatures in a huge groundswell, it actually is a thing that's going to, and we can make that sustainable and not just a flash in the pan. That is what leads to sustained democratic power that is close to the people. That
was their plan for 2010 that screwed us, that we're still living through. Right? I ran this group that was, when I first moved here, out to Ohio. I'm a New York East Coast kind of guy. My wife's from Cincinnati, and I ended up moving out here. The first gig I got when I moved out here was running this group in 2008, just the earned media side, to get PR, this little sort of war room we had to win back the state house in Ohio, because we were down 5 seats and we won 7 seats. I now sit there and look at their supermajority, and all the gerrymandering they've done, because that was the last moment of glory for us there. But here's the thing: you can't supermajority, you can't gerrymander. Now we need to fight it everywhere possible because they're going to try to cheat. It's really hard to gerrymander against the Epstein files. It's really hard to gerrymander against an economy your Republicans have given you, where you don't have food and health care. It is really, and inflation is through the roof. We're like stagflation. Welcome back, 70s. It is really hard to gerrymander, against some of the cruel things and evil things you see happening, to the point of where even many MAGA members have spoken out and said the cruelty with which these masked ghouls are grabbing people off the streets. So what I'm saying is we've done it before and we can do it again. Like we just won. There was one race, a state Senate race, that was a plus, I want to say 20 Republican seat. God, I should have written that one down. That on election night that we won by something like 20 points. It was like a 40-point flip. So what I'm saying to you is there are very few districts they have. If you see Marjorie Taylor Greene in her plus 20 Republican district getting scary, there are very few districts they have that if there is that kind of change, that kind of huge groundswell, we have the leadership in place that understands how we should be campaigning, the messages we should be campaigning on that unite the most people and turn them out. Should we run as moderates or should we run as? It's just the stupidest argument in the world. You know what happens if food? You know what happens if food prices and childcare prices and college prices and all these things go up? Every person from people that are having to go to food pantries up to upper middle class people living in suburbs making $250,000 a year are hurt and can't end up affording things they want. All right? If we remind people it is all of us together against the billionaires. They are the ones, the oligarchs, sitting with Trump confiscating our freedoms and confiscating our financials. And they are the ones who are. So if we remind people, we can unite an enormous coalition behind this. And then we campaign, as you said, in a manner in which we invite people in, we have conversations, we talk to local influencers and work with them. All the stuff that we're talking about here, that is a formula for an FDR style ass kicking in 32. Like with 32 or 34, they had 4 of them in a row back in the 30s because of it. Well, we need that now, and that means we need our leadership reflecting and out there messaging the kind of stuff we're saying. So that's where I am.
100%. I'm totally with you. The biggest dividing line in politics is between people who have to work in order to survive and people who get to work for fun.
Yes.
And as long as we're on the side of the people who have to work to survive, we're in a good spot. So should we leave it there?
I think so. Again, I always worry because of my genetically larger food hole, we could call it, that I talk too much. So if there are things where I jumped in and there's things you'd like to say, please do.
No, this is exactly the conversation I wanted to have, Cliff. I really, really enjoyed it. Appreciate everybody joining us for this. And
yeah, thank you guys.
There's a lot of hope here and a lot of frustration. And that frustration is going to be the thing that propels us. Dealing with that frustration can be the thing that propels us to the wins that we all know are coming for the people.
Couldn't have said it better. So now I guess the only thing we have left to figure out is how shitty my sound was, which I guess we'll know soon. Maybe it magically went back to being good. I heard. Well, the other people on with me in the past, though, it sounded okay to it. The audience that has let me know and been like, you sound like you were in a tunnel, kind of thing. So let's hope. I did reach out to Substack, so let's hope that got fixed because I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed getting back in touch with you and seeing that you'd taken a similar path over the last decade. Sam and I just talked again for the first time. We talked in the past, maybe a month ago. I don't remember how long ago. I don't think we had lost touch 6, 8, I don't know how many years ago, maybe longer. And it's been cool to see that we've been on a similar journey. So awesome to talk to you about this. And thank you everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
My pleasure.
All right, talk to y'all soon.
Take care, buddy. Take care, everybody.